figure it out. Is everybody here? I'm going to call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if there are technological problems unless required by law. The local scene, formerly PAC TV, will record this meeting. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair. All right, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing strategies with respect to contract negotiations with the assistant superintendent, which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body if the discussion were in open session. I need a second.
Second.
All right, we'll do roll call. Kelly?
Aye.
Laurel? Aye. Katie?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Matt? Aye. We will return to open session. Public comment. I think we're all set there. Okay. Moving on, is there anything anyone would like to pull off the consent agenda for discussion? No? Remember, just a reminder, you can ask questions about anything in here. We wouldn't be discussing it unless you pull it. So, we good? No questions? The only one that I think is sort of a change from what we might have, or what people might have been aware of prior is the Onion Field piece. So Lisa, do you want to just give I know you put a memo in, but just a quick high-level blurb about why that's changing?
So, originally the upgrades to the softball field were part of the capital request that we had submitted for this coming year, but was removed from capital because it was supposed to be supported by ARPA funding. And then due to circumstances with deadlines on the town side, it ended up not being supported by Plymouth County for ARPA funding. So with that, I was having a conversation with Mary trying to figure out a solution. And so the number of factors kind of at play. And I was asking about the open classroom funds that we currently have. And so through that conversation,
Which were ARPA, right?
they were not, their capital.
The open classroom or capital?
Yeah,
Oh,
open
okay.
classroom is capital, yep. So through that conversation is then where this came about, to repurpose some of the funds that are currently available for the Onion Field upgrades. And it'll address a number of safety issues that we have out there, and the functionality for the softball teams.
Just a reminder, the open classroom project came in under budget, which is why there were some surplus funds.
Great, thank you. All right, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the approval of meeting minutes from 1/29/25, the DHS overnight trip for the Latin Club in April of 2025, the request to approve the accounts payable warrant FY25, numbers 32, 33, and 35, a request for repurposing of capital funds for Onion Field upgrades, the surplus inventory request, and the Student Opportunity Act 25-26 memo that Beth created.
So moved?
Second.
No? Well, no, I do. That's good. We don't need a vote. Katie did second, just in case. Okay. Moving right along to reports.
Okay. So it is very hard for me to believe that we're finally here at March 7th with annual town meeting coming up this Saturday. We're really hoping that the many, community forums, radio spots, meetings, handouts, presentations, and short videos have been helpful in painting the budget picture for the school district. If anyone has any unanswered questions, please reach out in the next 48 hours before town meeting, or I'm glad to speak to anyone before the meeting begins on Saturday morning. I will also be giving a short school department overview at the start of the meeting, and of course will be available if anyone has questions when we start to go through the articles. This week was a busy one at DHS. Some of you were kind enough to come in and speak with the visiting team, but we had our decennial NEASC visit this week. NEASC, for anyone who may not be familiar with the terms, if you have younger students, is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and it's our high school accrediting body. So the NEASC certification attests to a school's high quality and integrity. The NEASC process is voluntary cycle of comprehensive internal and external assessments, short and long-term strategic planning, and periodic reporting sustained by professional partnership and support. NEASC member schools must periodically demonstrate continued alignment with NEASC standards in order to maintain their NEASC accreditation membership. So a visiting team from around the state, sometimes we have people from outside of the state and throughout New England, but I think all of our people were from Massachusetts this week. So it's educators from different school districts. We have teachers, you may have former principals, current principals, library media specialists, all kinds of backgrounds, visited our school. And they spent 3 days at the high school conducting stakeholder interviews with school committee, with me, with our administrators, with students, and with teachers. They were observing classrooms, and they were, on the last day, I believe, saw a showcase of our students' work, which was by far the highlight of their visit. So we are going to be awaiting the team's final report. The team that was here gave an overview of some of their impressions to the DHS staff yesterday afternoon, and it was what we heard initially was positive, that they had a nice, well-organized visit, and were impressed with especially with our student presentations. So we will be sharing with you when that report becomes available, and certainly that will be something that the high school school council will be dissecting. And we just wanted to recognize Principal Jen Cotton-Herman and the team for the hard work organizing this visit, ensuring it was a smooth one. There were a lot of moving parts and interviews that needed to take place, and there were a lot of logistical accommodations that we need to make sure that the team has lodging and meals and snacks. Our Chartwell's Katie DiNardo and Kelly Prince went above and beyond this week to make sure that there was food available for the visiting team, and it was just a really nice whole school effort in making sure that we were presenting our best possible high school. Just a reminder to everyone that our K-12 Insight Survey is live, and we are encouraging all of our stakeholders to provide feedback. So please don't forget, it's very quick. It's 5 minutes unless you have a lot of feedback to provide in the open response. But if you have just general feedback, it should be a fast survey to take. And I know Gerard is going to speak to some of the things I'm going to say in more detail, but I wanted to say congratulations to our winter sports teams for a fantastic season. The girls basketball and hockey teams both faced heartbreaking overtime losses this week, and our boys hockey team had a tough loss last Sunday. Boys basketball also had a very strong season, and we want to wish the cheer team the best of luck at states this weekend at Worcester State, as well as our indoor track athletes and wrestlers that are advancing to New England. We have a few students in relays that are doing so well and are advancing to New England. Reminder that spring sports begin on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. And also congratulations to Dux Drama, who is moving on to the semifinals for METG, which is our Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild, and we have a really strong production that is being put forward, and Gerard has some additional information about that he'll share. And that is all from me. Thank you.
Good evening. The Student Opportunity Act, as you're aware, has been created for Duxbury for this year. Included are updates on the 3 focus areas for our district, and that includes universal full-day kindergarten, continued implementation of evidence-based high-quality curriculum, as well as our innovation career pathways, specifically in advanced manufacturing. So that plan has been created and has been submitted to DESE on behalf of the district. MCAS testing begins this month at DHS and DMS, and will begin in April for students at Alden. Staff who will be administering MCAS are currently undergoing training at staff meetings, and new this year is a different platform. So previously the MCAS was administered through Pearson, but this year it has transitioned to Kania. Our building administrators are working to ensure the administration goes as smoothly as possible. One of the differences that they have noted is that previously test administrators could monitor students online, but now it will be more in person and moving about in the classroom. So that's one difference that we've already noted and has been brought up in some of the trainings. Lastly, the most recent School Wellness Advisory Council meeting was held in February. The council put together a series of wellness activities for the month of March, including a walking challenge for staff members in the district and some nutrition tips, thanks to Kelly Prince, who provided us with those resources. We also have a teacher who will be providing a yoga class for anyone who is interested on staff. So we look forward to that at the end of March. And yes, and we just wanted to thank Breadboard as well for their help with the NEAS visit and providing our visitors with delicious options, and they were very impressed by the students in Breadboard and the program.
They make good food.
They do.
I think it was paninis, right?
Yes.
Okay. My turn.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. So I just wanted to provide a brief update on the school capital projects that will be on the town meeting warrant this weekend. As a reminder, our prioritized capital requests totaled over $1.4 million this year and included needs across curriculum, technology, and various facilities items, such as roof repairs, abatement, HVAC, a Chandler wheelchair ramp, loading dock, bird netting, and then the Onion softball field. Notably, the bird netting has been moved to ARPA funding, and that project will take place later this spring. Given the limited funds available for capital requests and the ongoing needs across the town, as well as free cash coming in lower than expected, the town prioritized all the capital requests, and the following school items will appear on the warrant. In Article 6 will be year 2 of our Chromebook lease, $350,000 for curriculum, $50,000 for roof repairs, and $105,388 for technology, for a total of $650,388. In Article 7 will be $20,000 for abatement. Please note that the loading dock funding was removed from the request as a temporary repair has addressed the safety risk that was posed. We had hoped those funds would be reallocated to school technology, but with the lower than expected free cash, we were only able to receive an additional $25,000 of the original amount approved, which was $80,388. And lastly, this month, the Joint Ways and Means Committee the State Joint Ways and Means Committee will convene public hearings on the fiscal 2026 budget. Next month, the House Ways and Means Committee will review the budget and develop its own recommendations. And once debated, amended, and voted on by the full House, it will become the final House budget bill and then move to the Senate, who will also then take it up in May and follow a similar process as the House. Once the Senate bill is finalized, it will move to the Conference Committee, where differences between the House and Senate bills will be negotiated, and this process should happen in June. I'll continue to provide further updates on the state's budget process as they become available.
I think last year they didn't settle it until August.
Right.
It was really late.
Right. They outline a general time frame, so as of right now, they're still saying that it would be finished in June and ready for July.
Right.
We will see how the process goes this year. All set?
I think we can, but thank you.
I'm using Lisa's.
Oh, you're good.
You can hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. A few updates. I wanted to acknowledge the Apple team. I know I've talked about it. This is the collaboration with the Federation for Children with Special Needs, our CPAC, and some of our staff. But I don't think I ever mentioned who the members were, so I just want to publicly acknowledge them and thank them. Jen Whedon, Caitlin O'Connor, Lauren Byron are our parent representatives. Julie Baggia is the middle school team chair. Kristen Lambert is the Alden team chair, and myself. So we are that team who are working together. We did have the opportunity to offer an additional workshop to parents about the new IEP. We held that on February 11th. We didn't get a lot of people. It was kind of a tight time frame, and it was right before vacation. But we did do a survey, and parents indicated it was helpful information. And there are just a lot of parents who haven't had their IEP meeting yet, so they haven't actually seen their child's IEP in the new form. So we're putting together some additional information to send out to parents and to put that out there. I do want to read kind of the statement from this group. Duxbury 2025 Apple team is committed to collaborating so families of students with disabilities feel they are in trusting, respectful, and collaborative relationship with special education staff, putting the child at the center of all decision-making and elevating the CPAC voices to advise the district and work together. We do have a CPAC board meeting tomorrow, actually, and our next CPAC meeting is Monday night right here. And our special ed leadership team is meeting tomorrow. Our theme is continuing to build coherence, collaboration, coordination. I just had Chandler staff going up to the middle school a few days ago to look at a particular curriculum that's used, for a specialized learning community. And it's really nice to just have these teachers talking across levels, but also for the Chandler staff to see some of their former students as older, kids and teenagers. So I'm continuing to encourage those visits back and forth. And again, it's all about kind of building that coherence so that as kids are traveling from level to level, as we're writing IEPs, it doesn't feel wildly different, that it makes sense. And let me see.
Duxbury Free Library, we have a collaboration with the Friendship Group. So we met with high school staff. Jen Cotton Herman was great. The first activity they have planned is March 18th, and then the 25th, April 1st, and April 29th. We're having our students who have special needs invite their Dux Buds to participate in those activities with them. So it kind of incorporates a writing activity, communicating, doing an invitation. The intent is not to have a huge group of students. I think they want maybe about 20 or 25. So that's why we're kind of making it more of a personal thing and incorporating some lessons in how to invite somebody to a party. And of course, encouraging people to go to town meeting on Saturday. And then April 2nd, I think, is when we're going to do a presentation for special ed at school committee. Somewhere in April, I think.
Oh, I don't
What
know
did we
if
were
Laura
I don't
and I
know.
know about that.
Is it not the awards? You're talking about just a CPAC? We
can talk
sort
about that.
out.
We
The
might not have
agenda
that
planning.
date yet, but we'll make sure we
Okay.
Yeah.
communicate with CPAC to see when they want to
Yeah.
visit.
We'll be doing a reorg after March 22nd too, so
Okay.
figure that out.
Okay.
All right, student reps.
Flying solo
Rep.
today.
Sorry.
This week at Chandler, good evening everyone. This week at Chandler we are celebrating Read Across the Week. Read Across Chandler Week. Students and teachers are exploring different places to read throughout the school, and students will vote on their favorite place to read at the end of the week. We will also celebrate with several fun events during the week, including hearing a story read during lunch, dressing up like our favorite book character, and inviting a community member into all classrooms to read. Thanks to our generous Chandler PTA, we have been able to invite a therapy dog back into the halls of Chandler School. Hutch and his owner Amanda are certified through a company called The Given Retriever. They provided opportunities for small groups of students to work on the development of specific social, emotional skills such as self-advocacy and self-regulation. Thank you again to the Chandler PTA for bringing our students and staff this opportunity. At Alden, we held a respect assembly with the theme of teamwork. Thank you to our reading specialist Jen Burns, Anna Batista, and Pam Larson, as well as our library media specialist Jen Burns, for also including our role out of Read Across America Month. We will be hosting a Spirit next week for students based on our reading theme, along with a grade level snowball slam contest where students earn beads for their logged reading time. We also welcome DHS students Cole Martin and myself to share the upcoming fundraiser Putting for Patients, where they engage students in attempting to get a hole-in-one on stage. The Alden staff engaged in MCAS training this week, where all staff were trained on the new platform. We begin MCAS at the start of April. All dates can be found in our weekly newsletter. This week at DMS, we opened course selection for all 5th, 6th, and 7th graders in Aspen. Students have the whole month of March to select their courses, and all information and commonly asked questions can be found under the guidance section of our website, and were emailed directly to families a few weeks ago. We are about halfway through the term, and students are encouraged to check on their academic status and schedule time during ASB or after school to check in with their teachers if they have any missing assignments at this point in the term. Thanks to our PTO, our Spring into Spring fundraiser is underway at DMS, and we will have our walkathon next Friday, March 14th in the morning. As part of our support for this effort, we will wrap the afternoon with our annual staff versus student basketball game, organized by our students from RAP, and we hope to see our students all show up to the DHS gym after school on March 14th to cheer on the teams. At DHS last Thursday, during ASP, the class of 2025 celebrated their 100 days till graduation. Seniors wore their class t-shirts and played cornhole on Main Street. Thanks to the DHS breadboard for preparing the amazing cupcakes. This past Thursday, Thespian Troop 355 entered into the preliminary round of the annual Massachusetts High School Drama Festival with the performance of One Lane Bridge, written by Stephen Gregg. For the first time since 2019, their play was chosen to advance into the semifinals. Congrats to Salem Zubiotti, 25, the student director, as well as to other directors, cast, Pitt, and crew. Their semifinal performance will take place on Saturday, March 15th at Chapman Middle School in Weymouth. While the boys hockey team, girls hockey team, and girls basketball team had some tough losses, we would like to congratulate all the players and coaches on a great season. The winter cheerleading team took 3rd place in regionals this past Friday, qualifying for states. Congratulations to Noah Edwards, 26, for winning the 114 weight class at the Girls State Wrestling Championships, as well as Maggie Slimbo, 25, Addie Slimbo, 26, Liv Cooperine, 27, and Riley Oak, 27, for scoring 10th at the Girls 4 400 relay race at the New England Indoor Track Championships. NHS, as well as the Superintendent's Advisory Cabinet, is hosting Putting for Patients, which is an 18-hole mini golf course that will be set up on Thursday, March 20th at the DHS gym. All proceeds will be going to the Jimmy Fund. And lastly, course selection closes this Friday, March 7th. Students should make sure to put in their final request beforehand. Oh, I'm sweating.
Breathe. Take a deep breath. Deep breath.
5 pages of fun.
All right. I don't have an update. I just mostly want to acknowledge the time and effort that's been put into this budget cycle, which, as Danielle said, feels like it's been very long, and yet not quite long enough in some ways. It's exciting and nerve-wracking thinking about what is going to be happening on Saturday. So I want to thank the administration for all the work you've done, the meetings with the town, so many meetings with Finance Committee, Fiscal Advisory, the town forums where the presentations were done. I would invite people to, if you still have questions or are interested in reviewing the information, those recordings are all on the town website. Certainly dip into those before you come to the meeting so you feel like you're going to make an informed decision. And then thanks also to the BTA. I think there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes to get the word out to help parents get to the meetings to support the schools. And so I'm excited and hopeful that we get a large group of people showing up to make what is a very important decision for the town. And it's not just the schools, but certainly that is our purview. So as always, our phone numbers and emails are on the school committee website. If you still have questions, I would be happy to chat with anyone, always. So reach out and show up. Does anybody else have an update or anything they'd like to say?
Two updates.
Chalk right in there. It's for everybody to know, sorry, Danielle, you said this, there isn't anyone here in public. The mics are working for the recording,
Yeah.
but they're not echoing in here or out there. That's
they
why you're
sound
not,
like they're
that's why
not
you're not
on.
hearing your voice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
So go ahead.
So I attended along with Lisa. We were both at the Athletic Advisory Committee meeting, and I think that was the second one of the year. Oh, yeah, this thing.
You got to push it up. Now it's on.
Okay, good.
Here, use mine.
Yeah, mine's still back. It turns on for a second and then turns off.
Got a spare in there. Maybe that one's working.
Hello?
Here.
Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, so as I was saying, I attended the second meeting of the year last year for the Athletic Advisory Committee meeting, and Lisa was there with me. And just a quick update to the group here. We spent 80% of the meeting, I would say, going through the handbook and making updates similar to what we do on a regular basis here. So I am hopeful that by the next meeting we have, April 17th, we'll be pretty much ready to finish that off and, echo the comments of what a phenomenal winter season the Duxbury athletes have had. It's really impressive, and I just congratulate all the kids. It's really great to see. So well done. So that was one update, and then the other one is you all probably received an email from MASC just about the sunset clause expiring at the end of March for remote meetings. So I think, so basically what it is the sunset clause enables remote and hybrid meeting options for citizens and school staff to participate in a more broad and equitable manner for meetings. And if that does not get renewed, March 31st, it goes away. So obviously with COVID, that really became the way that we all got work done. And I think we have now made that more of a hybrid solution for us. And I think there are people probably listening right now that would value a continuation of this. So I reached out to Senator O'Connor and Representative Sweezy. They both responded, and they are working towards finding a solution for that to make sure it gets done, and not only gets done, but doesn't become something that expires every couple of years. The one reservation, though, I guess Representative Sweezy said, which I didn't know, is this potentially could get bundled into the Municipal Empowerment Act, which includes a lot of new taxes. So that is, it's not like a easy, oh yeah, of course, it makes sense to continue, and you're nodding your head, so you must be aware of some of this.
I am aware. I know that there's a few different things. That's one of them.
Yep.
On the town side, there's some procurement items. The school department or school departments were able to have a law that went into place in November of '22 so that we can do, right, 3 quotes up to $50,000, up to $100,000. Towns were not able to do that, so that's part of that Municipal Empowerment Act. But there's a bunch of other things in
Okay.
there as well. So yes, and new taxes.
Yeah, so I'll be keeping an eye on it to the extent we have any control, but I'm aware, and you guys should all just keep an eye on it as well.
And just to clarify that, I think, so this is being broadcast on PAC TV as all of our town meetings are, which is different than
Yes.
interactive participation over Zoom, which I think is what that is
Right.
specific to. This
Yeah.
would continue.
We've always broadcast live.
Right.
I don't know when it first started, but I think this would not enable the school committee to have a meeting during the day. Occasionally, we'll have a
executive session.
meeting during the workday that is much more convenient if we just have a quick issue that we need to meet about. So that would eliminate that ability to just jump on a Zoom at 9 o'clock,
Right.
still post the meeting and still be able to have people attend through
Okay.
that Zoom link. But if they were to sunset that, we wouldn't have that flexibility any longer to be able to do a quick meeting over Zoom. Or if there was ever a weather event and school committee wanted to just have the meeting remotely on a night it was snowing, we wouldn't be able to do that. So that might be something if that we could bring up at that legislative breakfast that's coming up in a couple of weeks too. Is just that personally, I think it's a great option, and I know that our school committee was one of the earlier adopters of getting back in person, even while we were still in a hybrid situation with our students. And so I know some school committees and other town meetings haven't been back in person yet, and so that could be where that's coming from. But we've always tried to get back in person whenever we possibly can.
Okay, and thank you for clarifying on the PAC TV. It's not a Zoom. it's
That
a
just
live.
occurred to me,
No, that's
sorry,
good.
I was
A
thinking.
good
You're
point.
right.
So
And I wonder if, again, executive sessions could take place just on a conference call as opposed to a meeting that you're holding where you're inviting people to actively participate over Zoom. I
Right.
think those are all different things, so it might be good to get clarification on that.
Yep.
I'm saying this without actually knowing if that is, those are separate pieces. Right. That would be challenging, especially given everybody coming from different places. Okay.
Okay, that was it for me. Thank you.
Oh, is that the one that's worked? Oh, you don't have one. We can share.
Just quickly, I attended the middle school council meeting 2 weeks ago now, probably, and Sarah McGuire's not here, but it was the most detailed, like, in-depth understanding of iReady and how it operates in our district that I've heard in ever. And I don't know, like, the amount of detail she gave about how you like hover over the different areas and like can really pinpoint exactly what students are missing and how they work to group those students so that they work on their skill sets together, and like just the like, I don't know, I feel like we all hear about iReady a lot and such, and it was a smaller group, so I think it allowed for more opportunity, but it literally, I mean, afterward I was like, that's the best understanding of like how they're really utilizing it day to day and how they've reshaped it now so that, you know, it's actually, even regardless of what like track you're on, it's giving students things to work on that they're actually working on in class, so that it's reinforcing more than just like pulling random things that they were missing and things like that. I know like I ask a lot of iReady questions because I see the way like it works for my children, and I just wanted to like give her a kudos because all the other parents that were in the room were like, oh, you know, it was really impactful to actually really get that in-depth, like, dig down. So maybe she'll want to come present to everybody
Was it
someday,
so
I
good that
bet.
you'd like her to make a short video on it?
Yes, kind of. I mean, I don't want to put her
You
on.
can
I don't
ask
want to make
her.
her do that, but honestly, like, I'm not exaggerating.
No, I think
It
that's
was-
helpful.
Because
I
I
think
didn't
you
know that functionality
You get questions
existed.
about the iReady too, and you got to hear that firsthand, so it might be helpful next
Yeah.
time an iReady question comes up if we can refer parents to a short video about here's what it really is and what it can do.
And hear how it like it changes from like, you know, you do address it like fall to winter to spring and things like that, and how kids are moved in and out of groups and stuff, but just to understand, like, even like the hovering functionality and stuff like that, they're using it in, you know, a really sophisticated way on the back end. And I think kids are like, oh, I'm on a map, and I like do, but it's not. So I don't know. I just wanted to reinforce that it was very helpful and very.
Thank you.
Way to go, Sarah. She'll be
Good
really
job,
psyched
Sarah.
that I nominated her.
Well, I wonder, I mean, I think those reports go out, and I know there is a parent page that you're directed to where it tells you how to read the report and things, but I think people would be much more likely to watch a little clip. So when those reports go out, it could be something we offer as like here's how we use this, now here's your student's report. That might be
Yeah.
a good resource,
It's good to hear.
especially since it's K-8. No, not,
Are we not doing it in K?
no, not K, sorry,
We're using MCAS
for K,
as
1 to 8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, the first agenda item is the resolution of open meeting law complaint from Kelly Bresnahan. So the materials related to this are in the packet for the public. It's also public record now. The open meeting law complaint form that was filled out, and then the response to the open meeting law complaint, which is obviously composed by our legal counsel. And the final piece, the resolution is discussed in that response. And the final piece is that I will read the email that was the cause for the complaint. Hello, Matt and Kelly. During the Budget Subcommittee meeting today, per our agenda, we reviewed DPS fiscal management policies. In doing so, we determined that many of our policies need revision per MASC updates, most showing as reviewed in 2022. More specifically, the addition seemingly of policy DBG, budget adoption procedures related to approval by cost centers, and removal seemingly of policies DFD, gate receipts and admissions, and DM, cash and valuables in school building. Danielle suggested I inquire with the policy subcommittee, RE moving up your next meeting to prioritize review of the fiscal management policies in order to present revisions per MASC for a first reading at our February 5th meeting. Please let me know. So if anybody has questions, you can certainly reach out to the committee related to that. But again, it's all in the packet and is now public record.
And I received a follow-up email from the Attorney General's office just asking if I was happy with the resolution. And if I don't contact them further, then that's the end of it. So, and I am happy with the resolution.
Okay, great. The next item is annual town meeting. Matt, you asked this to be placed on the agenda, so
Yeah,
I'll hand it
thanks.
over
So,
to you.
it might be a quick discussion, but I just wanted to figure out whether it's would be appropriate to come up with some form of way of supporting Dr. Klingeman in the district at the town meeting. And the reason why I say that is that Duxbury town meetings are kind of unusual compared to other ones in that the superintendent and the school committee doesn't sit in front of the whole town like the other committees do. And in my opinion, it creates a little bit of sort of awkwardness when Dr. Klingeman has to answer a question or kind of get up, or one of us could be inspired to answer a question. And since those are the logistic realities, it's very unusual for a school committee member to answer a question or make a statement at a town meeting. I remember the last time I remember ever seeing one was Kelly, when you had responded to somebody who had a remark about Dr. Antonucci. And it was so unusual for a school committee meeting a member to respond to something that even at that meeting, the town moderator, I think, said something like, I don't want this to turn into like a back and forth. But
That was with the budget with Betsy Sullivan, the back and forth.
no, it was
that what-
no, it was the remark was, it's not really important, but the
Okay.
remark was from someone who said that our superintendent was like overpaid or something like that, and you
Okay.
got up to say, you got up to make a remark in response. But the point is that at this annual town meeting, I am anticipating there's going to be a lot of discussion about the school budget, like a lot of discussion. And I don't know, Dr. Klingeman, if they've indicated that you're going to be sitting in front the whole time this year, or you're going to be sitting in your usual spot in the audience.
So I believe that they have reserved the front row, if you're walking into the pack on the right, for the school committee and for me and for the school's administrative staff that will be there. And so that is typically what happens is we have front row seats and we're able to go up to the microphone when appropriate. But
Right.
to your point, it's not as natural because you're not sitting at a seat with the microphone already in front of you. So I think
Right. And
the
so-
hope would be to have us sitting together.
Well, I think that could be a discussion for like future meetings if they want to change the seating arrangements so that we're facing the audience. But my point is that in this particular discussion, there could be a lot of remarks and a lot of questions. You could get a lot of incoming from a lot of people if someone were to hold on the school budget. And there could be, all sorts of remarks. And I just want to make sure that we're having a discussion on how to best support you. Because otherwise I feel like and it's nobody's fault, but the natural sort of tendency is like you're just sort of there alone because we're not with you. And do you know what I mean? Like we're all sitting facing the stage, not the other way. So I just want to remind everybody that we do have, as individual members, we have the right to make a remark, answer a question if we want to. But I would like to discuss whether it would be appropriate to do two things. One, as a committee, we haven't formally, as a committee, endorsed 5B budget, the Article 5B. So
We voted the real needs budget.
yeah, but that's not Article 5B. So we have the right, if we want, as a committee, to formally endorse. The school committee can vote to formally endorse Article 5B. If we formally endorsed Article 5B, you would be empowered as the chair to make a remark if you wanted at the annual town meeting to say the school committee formally endorses Article 5B for whatever reasons you feel it's appropriate to speak for us.
Do you mean Article 5B specific to the school line item that's in Article 5B?
I mean Article 5B for the town.
The school committee can endorse the full Article 5B?
We have the right to endorse Article 5B. We can endorse Article 5B. We have the right to do that.
Okay.
So if we want, if it's the will of the committee, we could make a vote to formally endorse Article 5B, which would empower you as the chair to make some sort of statement if you wanted at the town meeting. You could do it as a reactive measure. You could do it proactively on or before Dr. Klingeman's presentation. We would also have the right to then write a letter to the Clipper. You could write the letter and it would be, signed by the school committee. It gives us a lot of flexibility and power to be able to communicate our advocacy of the override budget, not just the school budget, the override budget. So that's one thing. But then the other thing is that I just want to make sure that no one feels like they have to be gun shy. If someone, we've been to a lot of forums over the last few months, and there's been a lot of misinformation in the forums. Like there was one person who said that the school's contingency budget is asking for 18 new staff members, which is just patently false. I don't want to leave you alone to have to field all of that income. I want you to be supported. And I don't want any of us to feel like we can't stand up, awkwardly walk to the front, turn around, because you know what I'm saying? Because
Yep.
if this town meeting were run like other town meetings, we would all be seated next to the select board and the fiscal advisory and the finance committee, and it would be much more natural response if someone said something for one of us or the chair to get up. Do you see what I'm saying, Kat? Right? So I just want to make sure that we're empowered to do that. And that we're not sort of fuddy-duddying around oh, you can't say anything. And so that's why I just want to make sure that we're supporting you, we're supporting the district, and we're not looking, unintentionally, we're not looking overly passive, that we don't feel like we are empowered to defend our position, if our position is to support the Article 5B override.
I don't have, quite frankly, I wasn't aware, or I guess it had never been presented to the committee or in any of our understandings about endorsing the override budget outright, which is fine. I think in my mind, our purview is the school budget. So not that you can't do that. I just think, the finance committee endorses and the select board or recommended, it's really the recommended is the word, right? We recommend the school budget, finance committee and select board recommended the article and the voters decide. So I have no issue. I personally am obviously supportive of the override outright. I think I guess I would let other people weigh in on the concept of endorsing the override article outright, inclusive of all town departments. And then I think I want to clarify the kind of how this works piece, because I think that's something that is important for people to understand. But that's it. Yeah.
Similar to Laurel, I mean, I'm fully in support of the full Article 5B, but is it our purview? I mean, we can do that. You know for a fact that we can endorse it. And if, whether we endorse it or not tonight, does that change the fact of us? I appreciate you bringing this up because I think it's important that we feel empowered to support. And you don't want to be up, I mean, we're going to be asked the most questions, as we should be. We're the by far biggest part of this budget, and we've all attended enough forums to know where the heartstrings are pulled. And I do believe we have a good groundswell of support for the schools that will be showing up, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be without a lot of hard questions. And I think potentially pulling the school out of the override, right? And so I don't know, does endorsing 5B matter for the purposes of us standing up for what we individually or collectively, as we voted, recommended, right? The real needs budget. I don't know the answer to that. I think it's good discussion, but I would also like to talk about, okay, if and when it's brought up that you pull the schools out of the override, and if that moves forward.
Well, that's,
What do
yeah,
we-
I wanted to talk about that piece, and I was asked about whether we could articulate how those, how you go through 5A and 5B, kind of how that would look, because I think that's the point, is that, you know, we would be speaking to the school line item, and what I really want to make crystal clear, and for the community and everyone here, is that no one at town meeting decides how the schools spend their money.
Right.
The line item is a number. So if, for example, there has been rumblings of, you know, I'm going to stand up and remove X number of dollars from the school budget because I don't believe X should be funded. I mean, you could remove that value. That is within, you know, the rights of anyone in that room to amend the school line item dollar value. But it just needs to be made clear, and I think the finance committee will do so likely, or we can, that it is not within your decision-making power to do that. That's the school committee's purview. So I think that's something that needs to be made clear, and we've had discussions about that, and I think the committee has as well, the finance committee has as well, and my understanding is there's also been a lot of training for them and for the moderator to understand how to navigate those different decisions. So I think to Matt's point, there will be a lot of questions asked. My question to you, Danielle, is whether you intend to present sort of the high-level 6 slides that.
I have separately created some town meeting slides that
okay.
I want to make sure that I get the key points across, and I don't think anyone will be looking for me to speak for more than 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm giving a state of the schools, and then I'm giving impacts of the level funded budget, impacts of the override budget, and that's it. But if I could speak to Matt's point about me not being the only one that's getting up and down, that typically is what happens, and what has happened at some of the forums. For example, when I was standing in the middle of all of our select board, finance committee, town officials answering questions with a microphone. So I would love for us to be situated in a way that if a question comes up, I would imagine the school budget line someone will place a hold, and the community will come up and just get in line and ask any question of us. And so sometimes the question's appropriate for Lisa, sometimes the question's appropriate for Katie St. Clair, sometimes the question's appropriate for me, but at any time, if any of you want to field the question, if we could just take it slow. We don't need to be running up to the microphone.
Right.
And so if a question is being asked, and Matt, you're like, I'd like to take this
Yeah.
one if I could, I think any one of you could, by all means, just signal to me that you're going to handle it. If not, I'm always prepared to go back up to the microphone. And if there's a long line of questions where I see residents that are standing in line, I'll just stay up there, because sometimes I'll go back and sit back down and then come back up. But if there's a long line of questions and everybody's ready, I think that would be different than in the past, because I think sometimes seating-wise, we've been in the gym during COVID, and so people have been a little more spread out. But if we're all together in one place, it's easier for a decision to be made on the fly of
Right.
who's going to field what question that may come our way.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that.
And we'll be close to the microphone when they put one down.
Right.
In front of us. Matt, to the point, my opinion on us taking a stand on 5B is that we should, because I think all the town departments have been really clear that we're in this together, right? And Kevin Nord has spoken, like, no, we don't want you to just support us and not support the schools.
Rob Reardon.
So, Rob Reardon, sorry. Who did I say?
Kevin Nord,
Yeah,
you
he
went
was the
one
other
chief back.
Yes, I did. Okay. So I think I would be supportive of us standing behind 5B and supporting it. That's just my opinion.
Does anyone else have anything? 'Cause-
And I'm glad to hear that it's going to be succinct, and I think most of the questions will get into the weeds, and fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of the people attending town meeting will not have seen or paid attention to anything, and we all know that, right? The perception of the administrators cost too much, and I know you've addressed this, I'd strongly recommend you just hit that head on, even if you have a handout or something.
See,
at town
I was
meeting.
thinking about handouts, and I don't necessarily want to confuse matters or to add a handout that hadn't occurred to someone already, but I'm certainly glad to
Okay.
raise my hand to respond to our administrator structure.
Right.
If that question comes up, but my overview doesn't really speak to the things that have come up on Duxbury Helping Duxbury or at some of the forums. And so I'm really just doing a state of the schools and an overview of the impact. And my plan was to, and again, if you have different advice and you want me to address administrator or kindergarten or anything that's been a hot button issue, I'm glad to. I take your feedback, but I was trying to keep it. I timed myself with my remarks, and I was at about 5 minutes and 15 seconds, so I shortened that because I know the community will be calling me back up again, because I don't think I've attended a town meeting where there wasn't a hold when the
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
number is read, although I sit there and say, maybe this is the year that nobody
This
will
is
hold.
not
This
the
isn't-
year.
This isn't
Not
the year.
the year,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Maybe this is the year, but I do
Yeah.
think, yeah, I'll take your feedback. If you think there's anything that needs to be addressed up front,
Yeah.
my thought wasn't to get involved with some of the,
Yeah, I think that first of all, I trust your, whatever messaging you're going to think is appropriate to make the case. I think you've been doing that, and you'll do that. And I think a lot of what you're going to be saying and what other people might be assigned to say in the moment is going to be based on what feedback is coming in from the legislative branch. There's going to be a lot of people just making a lot of statements and saying a lot of things, which is to be expected. I think that's fine. The only other thing I'll say about formally endorsing the article is that, to echo what Kelly just said, there's just been a lot of I think, rightful talk about how this community has to come together for this override. And we are 48% of the town budget. So I read the Clipper this morning, and the library, which is not 50% of the town budget, they formally endorsed Article 5B, and they wrote an article to the editor. So I think that I think it would actually almost be kind of a standout if we didn't endorse the 5B budget, because we hold so much of the of it. So I would strongly recommend that we do make a formal endorsement if we all agree, if the majority of the committee agrees, because like I said, I just think it gives us flexibility. In that you look confused. Okay, so let's assume that it passes at town meeting. The big hurdle, if it passes at town, the big hurdle at town meeting, or that's not what I was going to say. The big hurdle after town meeting is going to be the ballot. So I think the flexibility affords us to make a very strong statement if we wanted to in the newspaper around why we support Article 5B and why we're encouraging people to get to the Steel Building to vote. So that's what I mean by flexibility, Katie. And then also, again, just to be able to, if Laurel wanted to, if she felt it was appropriate, I'd be very supportive of her making a statement on our behalf at the town meeting as to our support of it and why. So if you imagine that we don't, I would imagine a lot of people in town are being like, where the hell's the school committee? You know what I mean? They're 48% of the budget, which I hear a lot, even from the select board. So, and Laurel's right. You know, it's a very interesting situation that Massachusetts state law puts us in. The town appropriates the money to the school, but it can't tell the school how to spend the money. I think that puts more onus on us to, you know, be unified in our support of, you know, what we're asking for, because what we're asking for is a huge implication to everyone's taxes, because it's half of it.
Do you want to make a motion? Do you want me to make a motion? Why don't you make a motion? Because it's your
I move that the school committee formally endorse Article 5B.
second.
Any more discussion?
I think it's great. I mean, as you point out, and I'm happy, I've had some statements prepared for these forums, and then the questions get answered.
Yeah,
and it sort of takes
think whatever you're doing at the last forum was perfect.
that I didn't do. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's fine. I mean, I quite frankly would do that anyway. But you know, if this sort of supports that and facilitates that and makes it seem like a united front, then I'm on board. And I think there is not one department in the town who can function properly without the others. And so I think
Yeah.
that is.
Well, you wouldn't be, you can speak for us, but you can't speak for our support of the whole override without us formally endorsing it. That's why I wanted
I
to
understand.
have the discussion. So, yeah.
Yeah. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. Aye.
Aye.
Good. 5?
Unanimous?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I was hoping to, after town meeting, if our Article 5B does pass, I was hoping that we could have another Congress of Councils where the PTA, school councils, school committee, and any parents or community members that would like to attend, to have the opportunity, to get together to have a discussion. So I think that vote will be helpful for you all to feel comfortable during that Congress of Councils meeting if we're able to find a date that works for everyone in between March 8th and March 22nd.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we have a meeting scheduled too, so the question, I mean,
Yep.
there's a couple of different, which is why we did that.
Yep.
A couple different opportunities for that, so I think that would be good.
And I just one other comment about town meeting. With people going to the microphone, I would prefer not to. I mean, it's Matt, you're a great orator.
No, I'm not.
And
but
you
thank
are. And Laurel, you know, as the chair, usually the chair is sort of the one who speaks a lot. Anybody can, but you've spent more time than anyone with Danielle in going through the process, so just
But
empowering you.
if Katie and Kathy get
Yeah.
inspired, they should stand up too.
Very unlikely. Very unlikely.
I will be surprised if Katie's like, I'm going to handle this one, but by all means, if you want to, because
Yeah.
you never know, we really don't know what's going to come up, and so it could very well be a question that people have individually asked and researched on their own. So I would love if anyone felt comfortable to go up to the microphone. I will not be insulted if you say, I've got this one, that's great.
Step aside.
And I think there's been a lot of questions about kind of how this works, and I would refer people, I think, actually the last forum that happened, for the first time, I think, maybe the one prior as well, where they walked through sort of what this is going to look like. I think there's a lot of people who don't really understand how town meeting works and want to be supportive and show up, but are nervous about where and when and what you do. And I think during that forum, I believe Fernando articulated kind of, you know, we're going to go through 5A, the balanced budget. You go through it line item by line item. They literally read each one. Someone may hold any line they'd like. That is then discussed. Someone can make a motion to amend that line. That is then independently voted, yes or no. That line is changed accordingly. And then it's revised, and again, at the end is sort of the bottom line vote of the big number of which the schools are a part. So that is done with 5A. That will then again be done with 5B. Line item by line item, held, amendments, votes on individual lines, and then a final vote. Correct? Am I?
Yes. Yep.
So I think that's a really high-level overview, but if people have further questions, I think it was articulated a little bit more detail in that last recording. I don't think people should be nervous or concerned about how it's going to go. And I think everyone has a right to speak. Obviously, that's the intention of town meeting. So,
And I think the intention at the beginning is to explain for anyone that's at town meeting for the first time how it works and the clickers and that you
They
can't
do
leave
that.
with them and vote from home. And I heard there were a few people that were a little nervous about, will I know exactly when I have to make my vote decision, yes or no? And I think people, like you just said, shouldn't be nervous, and you can ask when you come in and you get in line to receive your voting clicker. Anyone that doesn't live in Duxbury and cannot vote is seated in a special section and doesn't receive a clicker, but they do go over it at the beginning.
and I think we have a very skilled moderator, and again, there's been a lot of training. So there will be questions and there will be things that come up that I think are unexpected, but my understanding is that that is the moderator, and in my experience at past meetings, it is crystal clear what you are voting on. They restate what
Yes.
you're voting on and what yes means and what no means. So I think once people get there, it will be a little bit more comfortable, but I understand the concern about, nervous about attending something that you haven't ever attended before, so.
I saw a comment on the disaster that is Duxbury today, that Article 1 will, you'd vote on Article 1 to determine if, like, you could even move on to Article 5B or something along these lines. It was like, there was something about Article 1.
Lisa has the,
Can you just tell me what Article 1 is? Because it implied that, like, that would determine whether or not we could even,
continue on.
mm-hmm.
Give me just 1 second.
Said by one of our favorites, so. It was
No, Article 1 is just an announcement to voters.
Right.
This is actually just coming from Susan Kelly. Someone asked Susan Kelly if they could amend Article 1, which is officers and ballots questions, to reduce the amount on the ballot question, 5B. And the answer is cannot be done. Article 1 is merely an announcement to the voters.
Okay.
Who will be on the ballot?
Of what will be on the
Yeah.
ballot, whether who
Okay.
or
Okay,
what.
good.
So there's no
Is that one
implications
of our
on.
favorites?
So this is their way to publicly do
That's
that.
good clarification.
Why don't you have a mic? You, okay, I'll pass this over then.
Also, real quick, I just wanted to confirm that you guys are sitting in the front row to the right facing the stage. That is reserved for school
That's where we were
committee.
last year, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that you're in the gym.
Okay, oh, he's gonna bring you a mic, so, hang on. Okay, moving on. The school calendar, everyone got to see it last time, but now we're gonna
Yes.
approve it. There haven't been any changes, have
There
there?
have not.
Okay.
Pull that up.
Oh, boy.
25, 26. Put it up on the screen. Do you want me to just go over the highlights again at a high-level overview, or?
I would say unless anything changed, we did it last time.
Okay.
So obviously that gave people an opportunity to weigh in. No one heard from anyone, did they? Great. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the 25-26 school calendar?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Sorry.
No, I didn't even wait for you to do it. I think it was
I
March.
wasn't listening. March.
Poor March.
March is long.
It's the worst month.
All right, school, 25-26 school choice hearing. This is something that is on our annual agenda each year. I don't know if you want to give a little high-level overview, Danielle, before we.
Yep. School departments are required to have a school choice hearing once per year, and this is our hearing that was posted. This is when school committees make the decision about whether or not it would be beneficial to the district to open the school choice program, which would allow parents to send students to Duxbury from other communities. Tuition is paid by the sending district to the receiving district, typically at the per pupil expenditure rate. And there are school districts in the Commonwealth that opt to do this if they have a declining enrollment, and it's beneficial to some districts to do this. Given that we have worked hard to get our class sizes at appropriate levels. And I think some of our class sizes continue to remain, even with real needs, a little bit higher than any of us would prefer, especially in some grade levels. It is not my recommendation that we enter into school choice. I think that we have an excellent school district, but I think it would put a burden on our school district if we suddenly had an influx of a number of students at different grade levels. Our enrollment is very steady, where it's approximately 200 students per grade level. It's something that we could certainly revisit another year if we ever had a very small grade level, because you can limit school choice by certain grades and certain number of students that you accept. But again, this year, given where we are with our current budget situation and still in post-pandemic recoupment of skills of our students, I recommend that we do not enter as a school choice district this year for FY '26.
Do any of our DART districts participate in school choice?
I don't know about our darts. I know locally, I believe Rockland and East Bridgewater may be school choice districts that are the most local of South Shore. But beyond that, I could look in to see if any of our darts do.
Is Plymouth?
Yeah, Cape Cod is definitely unique in that they are definitely competitive with school districts, and where they're trying to draw from a small number of students, so it's competitive. But those are the closest ones that we have for families that may want to switch districts.
Okay. Okay.
We have to vote, yeah. Am I essentially making a motion to exempt the district from school choice? Is that, or to accept your recommendation?
Yes.
Yes.
Refrain from entering school choice for 25-26.
All right, I move Duxbury Public Schools refrain from entering school choice for the 25-26 school year.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Great. Strategic plan, action plan review.
Okay, so we did put materials in the folder. Let me see if I have those open. Strategic plan update. Thank you to Beth for putting this together. We had just wanted to revisit the school improvement, the strategic plan action plans for this school year. And so did you want to go through some of these, Dr. Wilcox, or do you want me to? But overall, what I can say is we are on track to achieve our goals for this school year, and we're in very good shape of achieving all of the goals we set forth in our strategic plan from 2022 to 2026. And some of those key goals for that 4-year plan were to look at our educator compensation. It was to look at our full-day kindergarten program. It was to enter into college and career pathways. And so we've really been doing a nice job staying focused with that. But Beth is going to just go over a few highlights from this, not everything.
Yes, so our strategic objective 1 was focused on connected and interactive schools and community partnerships, and so we've done that through some of our discussions at faculty meetings, as well as our professional development has been focused on the home school communication strategies. In addition to that, we're continuing, as you all know, with K-12, and we're looking at the data from last year and comparing it to this year. Secondly, we have a goal to conduct consistent social emotional learning needs assessments. So we are looking at universal screeners that we would conduct with students at the beginning of the year to be proactive with some of our tiered services for social emotional resources. Our second strategic objective is focused on inclusive and culturally responsive instruction. So we pulled 2.1 as well as 2.3, which focus on integrating and practicing culturally responsive instruction for all students that reflect our core values, and utilizing instructional leadership and lead expert teachers to ensure the integration of best practices. So we've been taking a look at student data to understand different needs of our student subgroups. And we do that at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year, as well as ongoing as part of our student support meetings. We implement the evidence-based curriculum. So really we are trying to address this at the Tier 1 level to ensure that all of the curriculum that we're using is evidence-based and high quality. And also, again, it's the continuation and really making sure everything is cohesive. So if we're using evidence-based programming, are we providing the professional development that supports that? And how do we do that in an ongoing basis? How do we do that for new staff in the future? And how do we revisit it once it's been implemented for a few years? So those are all things that we're taking into consideration. We also are providing walkthrough opportunities for teachers. So I think that Ms. Skinner referenced that earlier, but we're doing that in various different areas. So with our math program, as well as at the middle school and the elementary schools. We are also calibrating co-teaching and looking at best practices and really taking a look at those curriculum reviews and ensuring that we're going back to them and revisiting them to make sure that we are addressing the different suggestions and recommendations. For example, vocabulary instruction, professional development, as well as a focus on manipulatives and visuals for mathematics at the elementary level. As we implement the program at the middle school, we also want to make sure that we are focusing on mathematics at the elementary level and high school as well. Our third strategic objective really talks about that coherence piece and ensuring that our programs are aligned. 3.2 is to communicate the alignment and process to all stakeholders, and 3.5 is to analyze data to improve student outcomes. And so we are piloting, we did pilot materials for literacy and communicated the results of that pilot to our stakeholders. We want to ensure that we're providing families with ongoing updates and really aligning the resources. When we think about the curriculum and the coherence piece, one example I can give to you is that our secondary curriculum supervisors used a prompt from the CKLA program and shared that with our secondary teachers. And so we're looking at how do you use your reading strategies to attack prompts and to understand those teaching comprehension strategies with our students at the secondary level. And so we're pulling directly from the questions that are being asked or will be asked of our students next year. So really that coherence piece, language are we using with our students in the vocabulary, and working together to make sure that it matches. We also have our time frames to analyze data, and then really looking at our instructional shifts. So ensuring that there's student collaboration, we have our student conversations, there's dialogue, we're hearing our students talk about and use the vocabulary, whether it's with the math program or in other content areas. And then ensuring that students are receiving the services that they need, whether it's through a tier 2 or during ASP. Lastly is the inclusive and financial communication system. So that is the work that has been done since the beginning of the year to discuss the budget and the needs based on student needs. So really taking a look at what do our students need, what do we need as a system to put into place strategic objective 1, 2, and 3, and connecting that to our budget. So our budget really reflects our values, and it reflects what our students require and what we think are priorities and our values. And so that has been through the information that has been shared by Ms. Freely, by Dr. Klingeman, and in addition to identifying any consolidations that we can make based on the reduction in our enrollment. We have tried to provide different communications along the way, whether it be videos, documents, visuals, presentations, and being open to answering any questions. And I believe that we continue to be open to answering any questions and having discussions.
And I feel like strategic objective 4 was really a school committee focused goal area when we developed the strategic plan. So I feel like all of you have been active participants in either doing some of this work or making recommendations through what you're hearing about how we can give the best budget message possible given the amount of time people have to engage. They may not be able to go through all of the budget presentations that you've seen, but I think you've given us a lot of feedback about what you're hearing, what would be helpful, and so I think back in 2022, we knew we were heading towards this year that we're in, and Saturday is finally here. So I think this has been a long time coming. We knew the ESSER funds were going to come to an end. Before we even entered into the pandemic, we knew we were headed towards the time when our needs were not able to be supported through the town revenues. And I feel a lot more comfortable with the way the community is aware about some of the struggles we go through when we're engaging in contract negotiations. And I think it's really difficult for whoever is the school committee is negotiating with the teachers union when we sit down for negotiations. And that can be very lonely when you're sitting there working with the educators that you're committed to supporting, and we want to see our school department successful. And it's a really difficult challenge when you're sitting there wanting to give people what they deserve and should be compensated at, but at the same time knowing that our town has very limited revenue and opportunity for market adjustments. So it's been kind of a relief to me to be able to have that conversation openly, not during a contract negotiation, so the community can understand the challenge that school committee members are in when they're negotiating a contract in good faith, given our limited fiscal resources. No one really understands that you can't go in there and say, we can't afford to increase your salaries next year and just have that be the end of it until you've experienced a negotiation yourself. It's a really tough thing. So thank you for your help on standard strategic objective 4 throughout this strategic plan. So that's the update for that. Does anyone have any questions or anything pop out during your review that you wanted to ask? No.
Anything that you're nervous about? Any concerns?
I would say the only thing that I am hopeful for is support for the different curriculum asks that we've made, because the evidence-based programming is certainly impactful for our students, and I think it's impactful for our teachers to have that coherent base to reference, and then it allows us to really focus in on our students and work with our students. I would also say that our Student Opportunities Act is focused on universal full-day kindergarten, and so we know that the funding from the Student Opportunities Act is tied to our plan, and so I'm hopeful that, and I think, just thinking about the connection between universal full-day kindergarten and our Student Opportunities Act and what that means for our students, and why we put universal full-day kindergarten into our Student Opportunities Act, because of the equity issues that not having universal full-day kindergarten creates, is important for me and something that is in certainly the forefront of some of the concerns that I may have.
Mm-hmm.
So when we did the budget forum last Friday at the library, we had a slide deck that we included in your folder for this evening. We haven't really been highlighting this, so I think it's really important for the school committee members to understand. There's 2 slides in there that are a high level that may not be something that are as meaningful to the rest of the community as it would be to you, but our Chapter 70 funding that the town receives, we had a bump in our Chapter 70 funding in 2023. And again, this was at the tail end of us receiving COVID funds, but what kind of gave our community a Band-Aid through that fiscal year that allowed the departments to not sustain cuts that year was because we had an increase in Chapter 70 funding from the state for the schools because of Student Opportunities Act. And so Beth was kind enough to put together a few slides so that the community understands that this Chapter 70 funding is essential. We don't receive a lot of funding from the state, as opposed to other communities may receive a lot more funding towards the school department from the state. But that Student Opportunities Act plan that Dr. Wilcox included in your folder in the consent agenda is saying that our community has a commitment to those initiatives those are contingent on the funding we received for the Student Opportunities Act, which our community relies on to fund the whole town budget. And again, that's just what you mentioned, the universal full-day kindergarten, evidence-based literacy and math curriculum, and implementation of innovation pathways. So If we are not to if the override doesn't pass, that is going to have a direct impact on approval of our Student Opportunities Act plan that the state reviews, and they don't, it's not just to check the box. We have to provide evidence that our community is committed to the initiatives that we set forth that we believe that our students need. And these do have a cost to them. And our community is well aware of that cost. So we want to make sure that we're providing as much in that Chapter 70 funding. And that Student Opportunities Act has a small per pupil cost associated with it we get back. And we want to make sure we remain in compliance with that so we continue to receive that funding. And up on the screen here, you'll see that back in FY22, before Student Opportunities Act was zero, and then in FY23, the community didn't receive this funding until the summertime, so we're well past budgets being voted at that time. But there was a little bump that came in of $372,000 because of that Student Opportunities Act. FY24 was $279,000. FY25, we received $196,000. And their preliminary estimates of what we would receive in FY26 is $121,000. And so the way we do the budget here in Duxbury, it's so early, and it takes a long time for the budget to be finalized. And so last summer was an example. We didn't find out until we were in FY25 what communities would be receiving for funding that year. So this is a really important note for school committee to be aware of.
I'm sorry if I'm the only one missing this, but why are so the numbers in total Chapter 70 funding and minimum aid are going up each year, but then in the SOA impact, it's going down? You know, so it's like 7 million funding, but instead of when it was 6.3 million funding, we're getting 372.
I think our Chapter 70, that minimum aid number fluctuates from year to year.
But SOA is dependent on
Our
your
own goals,
community.
yes, and our own
Yes,
community.
but also our income. I mean,
Yes.
the nature of
The wealth,
Duxbury,
the wealth.
the wealth of our community. We are not,
We're considered a minimum aid district.
yes. And that
Um,
number is
And so
only going
with
to
that,
decrease.
we literally receive the minimum aid based on the Chapter 70 funding formula.
Okay.
And then the Student Opportunity Act dollar amount is the difference between what we receive for Chapter 70 and what the formula calculation is for minimum aid. And I believe, go ahead, I'll let you go.
No, I was just going to say, we are required to create a Student Opportunity Act plan. That's 3 years, and we are required to provide updates on that annually, regardless if we receive funding based on the formulas that is designated or not. So there may be some years where we don't receive funding. However, we still are required to have that plan in place and to be addressing any inequities.
So it's another unfunded mandate. And some school districts receive millions of dollars in Student Opportunities Act funding, but we have the same application and approval process as a community that's receiving millions. But again, it has a small dollar value, but it's a significant one when we're looking at our Duxbury town budget. Every little bit counts.
So is there a chance that that would be decreased if we don't have universal full-day kindergarten?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. As of right now, with the update, I was able to say that we are on track and we are fulfilling what we are saying that we are doing. So that would be our update for next year that I would be making in 2026.
Thank you.
And how is it an unfunded mandate? So you're required to produce it, and then,
It's unfunded because the things, we have to do it.
Yep.
And we have to show items that would have a positive impact on students, of which there are very few, we could say, that don't have a dollar
Dollar
value
amount
to them.
assigned.
So we could probably be really creative and write some things that are supports we already have in place for students, but there's not many things that we can put that don't have a cost associated with it. And so it's kind of a catch-22.
Thank you for providing the update on the action plans. This is something I asked for. I think I said this when we saw these the first time, and I think I'm still really struggling with kind of how we articulate evidence of change
how we-
for the
how
actions
we-
that we have. And I want to read something because it sort of articulates what I've been trying to articulate in my ask. And I look at the kind of the KPI column, which I'm thrilled we have. I think I provided this feedback at the beginning of the year, which was that the KPIs we have for right here are primarily kind of about actions that we're going to take, as opposed to an indicator that is going to tell the community or the committee and the community whether or not we've kind of moved the needle on achieving the objective. And so I think that's still true. I think there are certain, SO2 has a little bit more kind of outcome-based language in the evidence of change column, because it's related to measures and things that we have numbers for. And it doesn't just have to be numbers either. So I want to be clear that the K-12 Insight Survey is essentially a customer service survey. That piece of data is critically important and informs the process. But I think what's always kind of missing for me is how we are showing the impact of all of the actions we take on students. And that's something that I continue to ask for. And I think this is this book that I have. It's called Grade on Their Behalf, Why School Boards, I'm not going to read the part, Grade on Their Behalf. School boards often focus primarily on enabling efforts, but the victory lies only in students learning. Schools can have the most ideal books, great instructional strategies, and professional learning communities, great extracurriculars, great meals served, and top facilities, and it's great to have all of these enablers. But having those things is not the same as children learning. Some schools have all of this and more, but the students still aren't growing in knowledge and skills. Effort is not enough, results matter, intention is not enough, impact matters. The powerful temptation to be satisfied with how hard adults tried, to accept effort and intention as proxies for results and impact, I don't agree with it. It's incredibly harmful to children. That's an exaggeration, right? I think my point is that and I'm saying this because I think it's leading into this next conversation about our next strategic plan, which is that I think we had a structure, and I participated as my first year on the committee, and I think I have sort of better understood what I would like to see going forward, assuming I am reelected, and how we could do a better job of telling the story of the district as it relates to student outcomes, because I think it is critically important that the community understands all the work that's being done. But in a budget crisis and at times when the rubber hits the road, I think the most convincing story we tell is why it matters to the students in the buildings, because that is something that everyone sort of can get behind and be on board with, and that's where you get people to understand. And so I think, we have that work to do ahead of us, and I think that's great. I think anything we can do with these action plans between now and the end of the year, and even next year's action plans, because that'll be the very final year of the current strategic plan, to really figure out ways, because I know we have the data, I think we have the information, it's finding a way to use it to explain why these actions and all the efforts of the adults in the buildings are leading to the outcomes that we want for students. So
When you're talking about that, I think about the portrait of a graduate, which is right there too, and what we are sharing about our portrait of a graduate and what we're saying our students have, as they graduate and move on from Duxbury. And so that's just another piece too, that is information that we have gathered and created as a community that I think about. And just as you were reading that, it made me think of the portrait of a graduate too. So I'm wondering how we could pull that all together, because that's what our community came up with. As these are our students once
This is
all
what
of
we
those
want for them.
efforts have happened, and so this is the impact: is that our students are empowered and healthy, they're communicators and collaborators, they're resilient and flexible, and they're engaged. And so I guess the ask or the next step might be, how do we show that?
How do you measure towards, at what stage are you to achieving, if everyone agrees this is the mission, portrait of a graduate, how do you measure that? And it's not necessarily, like Laurel said, every time a number, but I agree, and this is finishing my first year on school committee, so it's like a great roadmap, and I think we've all done some work trying to figure out how we can be more transparent with it and more measurable, but the next round, I agree, and I like that idea of like taking Portrait of a Graduate of the ultimate result that you want to see for a success, what we would consider a success. How do you then back into that and measure with your strategic plan?
And I think Howard, like, I think it's the nature of the beast, but I feel like much of our work is focused often on like high school and like where those kids are and whatnot. And I mean, you spend more time in K through 8 than you do in your high school years. And so I think I agree with, I love that idea that like you tie it all back, and that I do think I would love to see a strategic plan that is more like student outcome or student voice compared to like what the adults are doing in the building. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think, you know, even looking at the strategic plan committee from the last time, there were 2 students on it, and I think, I don't know, they just have like such valuable input and voices, and you can't base your entire world around what kids and students want. But I think understanding that roadmap for them, and I know like, again, we're implementing a new ELA curriculum because the one we were using wasn't meeting the needs of our students, and like, so what, you know, what does that look like now, and how does that get them to there, sort of. But I do think it's an opportunity to, now that we're kind of have a more solid base of that, to understand for the next one that we look at like everything we do and you do and whatnot is student outcomes, you know, and we want to make sure we're giving our teachers the support they need, because they are critically important in that process. So
Maybe we could also do our action plan update, not update, our action plan planning for the school year differently next year, in that we could certainly have a workshop that the school committee is participating in with district administrators, because the last thing we want to do is go back and forth and keep presenting to you plans that are not feeling satisfactory or student outcome based. We have read a book called Street Data. So we look at so many data sources. We've tried to add dashboards. We have Analytic View, where you can look at literally everything about a student, from attendance to any kind of risk factor, to how they're doing in ELA, how they're doing in math, are they in red, yellow, or green. We have so much data that we're looking at. But there's so many ways that we can report on seeing improved student learning outcomes. And if you are open to it, we could have a workshop before we start drafting these plans, just to be able to have everyone's input and ideas, because the last year of the plan, we don't want to have the same conversation throughout next year about how are our KPIs satisfactory? Are they telling the whole story? Is it aligned with our Portrait of a Graduate? Which we've done a lot of work to make sure that that is a K-12 Portrait of a Graduate and not a last 4 years cram it in. And the high school teachers need to make sure we have engaged citizens. Like, that really is engaged citizens from kindergarten on. And I do feel like our district educators have taken ownership of that clippership. And so if that's an idea that you'd like to do, we could certainly have a collaborative meeting like we do with strategic planning, but just with our action plan development for the final year of the strategic plan.
I like that.
I would love that.
Okay.
Okay. DPS strategic plan 2629. Roll right in.
I thought that's what we were talking about.
Well, we
Roll
started
right
talking
out.
about it. We can check that box. No, I think Matt had expressed some concern around Danielle's update at the
No,
last
it's okay.
meeting.
No.
So that's
Yeah, I'm
why
happy to
this
kick it off.
is
So
on here.
in the last school committee meeting, Dr. Klingeman's update, you mentioned that you were interviewing third-party vendors to come in to help with the execution of the next strategic plan. And I was just curious as to why we're considering changing the course from the Planning for Success framework.
I think that we were hoping to be able to give the school committee choices in the kind of strategic plan that we're looking to develop for the next 3 to 4 years. I think it was really nice to have this plan be a 4-year plan, because it's a whole year of creating a new plan, and then to do it in 3 years, it's kind of like, oh, here we are again. So I think we're just open to, like I just said a minute ago, we have so much student achievement data, we have so much clinical observation data, we have data from the teachers about the ease of our programs, we have parent feedback about challenges that they have with the learning in schools, whether it's our parents not being able to help their kids with math from 5th grade on. Not a good thing when our parents are really trying to make sure their kids are successful at home with homework and developing good study habits. And so I think we just wanted to be able to present the school committee with different options. The Planning for Success option that we did last time is one that's available at a lower cost through the Department of Education, and there's a lot of resources that are available. Some school districts do Planning for Success without a facilitator, and that's the way it was intended, that if school districts don't have the funds to be able to have a facilitator come in, all of the materials are readily available there to be able to do that process yourselves. There are other companies that come in. We work with consultants from time to time on different projects, and we look at other schools' budget presentation, budget books, budget summaries. We look at other schools' strategic plans, and we're always saying, oh, that one's really nice. That one has great KPIs. That one looks like it's got really measurable goals on it that are easy to report on. And so we want to be able to come and easily report progress on strategic plans, whether those goals are going to be achieved. And to the points that we've made about budget, we want to make sure that our community is feeling as though the investment they make in the school department is paying off. It can be really challenging when all we're really judged on is MCAS scores, especially when I've been reading, and it's really, I want to kind of jump in and talk about it. When people say, oh, the school district says they're doing a lot better, but I see really flat, if not worse, MCAS scores. Well, what I'd like to say to that is the MCAS test they continue to raise the bar on what a meets expectation is. And so while it may not look like we're doing better and better each year on MCAS, that's because the bar is getting moved, and the questions are more challenging, and we're not receiving the test questions the way we had been in the past to be able to really break those down and focus on it. And so it's hard to be judged as one of the only measures that you have on a bar that continues to move and become more challenging. And so we are doing better on MCAS outcomes because we do have more students that are at risk, that are at partially meets or meets and showing improvement through their growth. And so we see that. You can't just take the publicly facing data and make a judgment about a school district. So long story short, we just wanted to have the school committee's input before we made a decision on which direction we wanted to go in with that process, because we wanted to be able to jump into strategic planning early next year, knowing that we have a Unit A contract negotiation, and both of those things take a long time, not just from school committee, but from our efforts, and we don't want to end the school year next year with a rushed decision on a contract. So we want to be able to start both of those processes early. So that was the reason that we reached out to a couple of different vendors that Lisa's been collecting. Beth came across one through I don't know if it was a workshop you attended.
It's a workshop through MASS.
And so that we had a meeting, just a Zoom meeting with that vendor, and the vendor really came back and said, what you're trying to do sounds awesome, but we don't typically do that with school districts. But if you want to start a consortium of local school districts that would like to do that work in partnership, and we were like, we don't have time for that. We don't want to develop a new model here. So
No.
we're just trying to reach out. There's not a ton of companies that do it, and again, we're not looking to given the budget picture, this isn't something that we want to spend a lot of money on. It could be a position somewhere else in town that we're saying, oh, we need to spend this huge amount of money on a strategic planning consultant, when that could be better spent on a person that would be working in one of our town departments. So long story short, we are totally open to anything. And we just want your feedback about what direction the school committee would like to see our next strategic plan look like, and process-wise, and keep our options so that we're not coming back and having a product that people aren't satisfied with.
Okay, so just my original question.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need clarification. Are you steering away from planning for success?
We're not steering away from planning for success, but I
Okay.
think we need to tighten up the indicators that we are on the right track and that it's having a positive impact on students, which I do think we could do ourselves better than we did the first time. And so I'm
The
not
first
trying to
time
steer away.
When,
the first time we did planning for success.
okay, so 3 years
This
ago.
current plan.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, my own, so that's a little different from what I heard you say last time. I
Okay.
thought that you were saying that you were sort of moving on from the DESI framework and looking at other vendors. So I'm happy to hear that you're still considering
Yeah.
alternate routes, even if it's just, you know, yourself. So my own opinion is that I consider the strategic plan an unfunded mandate. I think it's like, we got to do it. It's really valuable, but we literally have to do it. And we're not given funding to do it. Again, you look confused. So so we have to do a strategic plan by law, right?
We have to have a district improvement plan and school improvement plans by law. And the school committee is responsible for the strategic initiative focus of the district, so
Okay,
sometimes
I
schools.
may be mistaken. I thought that it was mandated
I-
by DESI that we had to do a strategic plan.
I
That schools
believe-
have to do a strategic
I
plan.
don't
We
know
have
if
a
it's-
policy that says we have to have an annual, like, we're
District.
supposed to present an annual plan to the community
Yeah.
about what's been going on, so.
Logistically, I don't know if it's the law that we have to have a strategic plan, but we do have to have a district improvement plan, which you really can't develop without
A strategic plan, okay.
So,
So, I think that, I mean, personally, I can't see the gaps in our measurements and our metrics. I feel fairly good that every time we have the curriculum directors come in and present, or the principals present on progress, I feel like I'm given enough evidence to show whether we are, you know, feeling good and whether we're moving the needle or not. So I would have a hard time asking the taxpayers to invest in a third-party company to come in and, you know, help us do a strategic plan, particularly, you know, based on my understanding of the costs involved. I mean, it sounds like from what you have been doing so far, it's ranging anywhere from like 12 up to 50? Yeah, so I think the...
Where did you
Where'd
get
you
those
get those
numbers?
numbers?
I asked
Oh, when did you ask?
last week.
Oh, in the meeting?
No,
Oh,
I asked Dr. Klingman.
oh, okay.
oh, I think you asked me to ask Lisa, because
Yeah.
I don't have any quotes or numbers from anyone. In
Right.
fact, Beth and I only spoke to one vendor so far, and we didn't get a quote, so
Okay.
that's
And that-
coming from Lisa.
Yep, and that is the range of the similar work of the benchmarking and the KPIs that we had talked about before. But yeah, that's what we're.
So were you using those numbers from when we were looking at a separate, not
Yeah.
this current strategic plan?
Yep.
Okay.
So I guess my own recommendation is that Planning for Success is a free program. It's sponsored by DESI, but if you want to use one of their licensed facilitators, you pay for that. So we paid what, like $7 for Ruth?
Yeah, it was $7,000 for the last time.
$7,000 for Ruth. So, I mean, this will be my third strategic plan that I've witnessed as a school committee member, and I feel like the last strategic plan was, you know, significantly more well thought out and scientifically put together than the strategic plan before that, and even the strategic plan before that I thought was good. So to me, you know, I would feel more comfortable. What I suggest you consider is have Planning for Success and a facilitator come back and just have them react to where we feel the gaps are. If we feel there are gaps in the metrics, I'd like to know what those gaps are. Because, like, what I keep hearing is, it sounds to me like it's more in the abstract. It's like we don't have enough indicators to understand whether we're moving the needle. I disagree with that. I feel like I do have enough evidence to see whether we're moving the needle. So, if we don't, I would like to understand, personally, I would love to understand specifically where those gaps are. And if we can identify where those gaps are, I actually think Planning for Success should have right of first sort of reaction to it. Because maybe we fell down in what we were asking for. 3 years ago with them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to say what I've said many, many times. So, and I guess my struggle is that in the conversations and listening to the feedback in the community, you know, people shouldn't have to go 3 pages deep in DESE to see information about, this is just an example. It was alarming to me to see that only 20% of the population in our advanced coursework is our boys. And I think that's just one example of something that, you know, these are things that the committee is responsible for understanding. And in my mind, I don't think right now, and there's 2 things here. There's the data dashboard, which we've talked about a lot. But if you don't consistently monitor trend data over time, you can't see the changes. We didn't slide from, you know, in 2011, I think we were 17th, and then we dropped down almost to, I don't know what the lowest ranking was. And again, I'm not suggesting that rankings are the only thing. That happened over a 10-year period. And I still am struggling to figure out where that happened, why that happened, what contributed to that slide. And I think we can talk 6 ways to Sunday about, you know, all the things. We need more money. We need better curriculum. We need all these things. And those are all things we absolutely need. But if there is no framework in which to view year over year consistently on particular data pieces that we have decided are important, then I have a really hard time understanding how the committee is supposed to do its job, which is to ensure that the district is fulfilling its responsibilities in achieving the goals that we set. And therefore making decisions about resource allocation and budget, which is our biggest responsibility. And so I think my hope would be that, you know, it shouldn't be like, that's the old strategic plan, we're putting that away. There needs to be continuity year over year on that strategic plan. And I think each year you're going to have something new that you might be working on, but you're still continuing to monitor and work on those things that are, no matter what year it is or when you're doing it, are still important. And so there's like the baseline data that you're constantly tracking, and the efforts that you're, you know, putting out, your inputs essentially are contributing to those. But I don't know how else to say it, that I don't feel like we have a way to report out to the community at the end of each year kind of how we did, other than MCAS, which is what everybody grabs onto, because that's what we have.
So what are those trends that you're looking for? Aside from MCAS, let's put MCAS to the side. What other trends are you looking for that, so you mentioned that you were alarmed to see the 20% boys statistic. So that exists. So what are you looking for that we're not currently able to show?
We might be able to show it, but we're not seeing it. There's no framework for it to be presented in. I mean, we each year we set our agenda and we ask for presentations, and we get the presentation on the iReady data, you know, for that year. Maybe the year after, the year before, whatever the small. But there's nowhere kind of over time where the district is.
So
sort of
for
showcasing.
that example, for iReady data, it would be more helpful to see trends over like a 10-year period or a longer period? Besides
Sure.
this? Okay.
I mean, we haven't
something
had
specific,
iReady
so-
for 10 years, but
Oh.
whatever we have it for.
I mean, so it's
I
not-
think
so
there's
we have
just
a first
lots
few
of
years.
things that we often talk about. We have all this data and all this information, but if it's only viewed by the committee and presentations or the admin team or the teachers in the buildings, which is critically important for them to do their work. What I'm saying is it's our responsibility to be the PR firm for the district, right? To be able to monitor and manage and hold accountable our district for the goals that we've set. And my point is just that the indicators that we have for this strategic plan, they're not student outcomes. They're statements. They're like vision statements and kind of good ideas about what we want for our students, but there's, I guess, at the end, again, I always come back to this question of if someone asks me at the end of the year, or at the end of the 4 years, kind of, and we keep saying, you know, we'll achieve our goals, I feel like we don't have data points And again, when I say data points, I don't mean
I know.
just qualitative.
I get that, but I mean, with all due respect, what I keep hearing is like, I want to be able to say things to people, and when I want to answer them, it's not all numbers, and it's not. But I still don't know what you want. So like, if we can be more crisp on what is missing, what the gaps are. So right now, I'm hearing trends. I'm hearing, scores, but scores aren't all that important. There's other
I have
quality.
lots of
Well, hang on.
examples of other strategic plans. If you
Okay.
wanted, we did that last year.
Mhm.
And I shared some examples of strategic plans where there were KPIs and measurable data and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be incredibly beneficial for this district to have, to ensure that our community understands what's going on in the buildings.
Okay, well, maybe we can add that to an agenda, where we can just take a look at these other strategic plans and understand from our administrators whether we have the information to be able to recast it in that format. Because what I think I'm hearing is it's our ability to do public relations and to explain and make the case.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so if
That's
that's
our
the
job.
thing, so, yeah. So if it exists, to me, it's a matter of just being able to synthesize it in a way that you're going to be feeling like you're able to talk to a community member about.
It's not just me.
I know
I
it's
mean, I
not just
think
you,
our
but
community
you're the
needs to
one that's.
understand that.
I understand, but again, I feel I can I feel like I can explain, so maybe I can better explain. But my whole point, the reason why I want to have this discussion is that I just don't want to kind of glibly just say, okay, well, we need to be better at, showing evidence and showing metrics so we can show it. So we need to, hire like an outside consultant to do it.
Well, and I
That
think-
was what it, well, hang on, just let me finish. So that was why I added this to the agenda, because what I heard Dr. Klingeman say, it sounds a little bit different tonight, but what I heard Dr. Klingeman say was that we weren't going to go with this approach that we did last time. We were looking at outside vendors to do it. And it sounds like something has changed since then, which I think is good. So I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I think there's like the saying, you get what you pay for. So like free is great. It doesn't necessarily mean it's like the best and only option. And I think we invested in a K through 12 survey, which I think is important, and we'll see trends from last year. I think we came out of it last year with like our food's not great, and that was a big investment of money. And we invested in a firm to do our math curriculum review and our ELA curriculum review, and we have experts in the schools that do curriculum and whatnot, but we thought that was important, so we invested in it. I think the strategic plan of a district is like your foundation, and I don't know, I actually feel like what you both said tonight is like great. I don't know, it was the first time where you said like, yes, student voice and things of that nature, that our strategic plan is like, it's fine. But I think the foundation of a school district is like, it's student outcomes. It's like what the kids are doing in those buildings. It's not necessarily what the adults are doing, and that's important, but I don't know, how to measure the gaps or whatnot, but I think better understanding, like we've now invested in a new math curriculum, and in 3 years, our expectation is that these scores improve, and this is why, and that kids have a better grasp of, actually answering a math problem instead of just knowing like the equation to get there. And then we have a student voice that represents that, or like speaks to how that happened or something along those lines. And that sounds kind of like trite and silly, but I think if there's a way to like frankly humanize the strategic plan a little bit, I think that's what I'm looking for. And I won't be on this, but I think it's important that a school district has that foundation, and I don't think it's an unfunded mandate. I think any company, frankly, yes, any company, anything out there has a strategic plan in which they're trying to work towards. And so, I don't know, I'm not in it for like all the data and all the pieces. And I spoke earlier, like, iReady has a lot of capabilities, and so we don't want it just to be, MCAS, but there's a lot of ways to dig out different information to explain how our district is doing just based on that. And so I think that's more it for me. Like we set the way, like the oversight and responsibility for the school district and like what we think as the board of directors, frankly, is supposed to happen. And I trust both of you and think that you are the experts and whatnot, but honestly, Danielle, what you just said 10 minutes ago was like,
I don't even know what it was,
don't-
but I wish I had.
I
I'll
know,
watch
don't
them.
really-
I'll rewatch. But I think
Watch it, but it was
Yeah, and I think to your point, Katie, like when we look at iReady and we look at implementing illustrative math, yes, we want to see the scores go up, but I also want the feedback in 3 years to be that from the teachers saying that this math program has now gotten students out of their seats. They're
Yeah.
understanding math at a
Right.
deeper level. Maybe the scores aren't going to be going through the
Yes,
roof, but
yeah.
I feel like that's the street data that we could do a better job. And I think you live and learn with every strategic plan.
100%.
And I think that the frustrations from some of you with this current strategic plan weren't with the process of developing it. I think it was a nice collaborative process, and I think we now have the data that you're mentioning is from our equity audit that brought new information to light. We had written the strategic plan. Now we have this equity audit, and we're seeing some disparities in our student outcomes, and that's where Caitlin Sheehan comes in, because she's here for really the student experience and making sure everyone has access to learning and that all students have high expectations and are making growth. But to me, I felt like there was some dissatisfaction with our last strategic plan, so I'm not going to force planning for success, but I do think we could do the planning for success again and just learn from our lessons of what could have been measured
Yeah,
differently and
that's- yeah.
reported differently. And so if I came across last time that we had ruled that out, because Laurel and I during agenda plannings had never had a conversation about not doing planning for success again. I think that we're just looking to spend less time crafting and recrafting action plans so that the school committee feels like, yes, I can work with this one, we'll approve this one, this looks good, because we have so much work to do. And so if there's a way to make a better strategic plan that takes less of our time in development and we can focus more of those efforts on helping students and teachers, then that's what we want. But we also don't want to spend extra money on you can spend $60,000 on this and we might end up with a plan that we don't like again, because we're the ones that have to do the work and identify what we want on it, no matter who's
Yeah,
facilitating.
100%.
And so and I think sometimes that you get sold what you're paying for is easy to use templates, which is tempting, because it's like, I'd rather just plug something in and move on. But
Yeah.
I think the process last time was great. I think that we ended up with a plan that when you look at it from 2022 to 2026, I look at it like the big picture of everything that we set out as a priority at that time, we are going to achieve, hopefully, over the next month, which if what we were all saying together as the collaborative group, that if we do all of these things, if we get research-based programs in place, if we're making sure that we are hiring, retaining high-quality staff, if we're making sure that we are providing intervention opportunities and we're social and emotional, we're addressing kids' needs, then we're going to see achievement outcomes work out. So we kind of just did a leap of faith with, like, here's all the things we're doing. But I think what Laurel's point is that just to have a clearer sense of data points that are meaningful using all the data that we have. And I think that bringing more math into the next plan may be a way we can satisfy that, to look at some of our at-risk student groups more clearly, to be able to track them, use longitudinal data. We've been doing iReady for a few years. We used to not have any data at the middle school and high school besides MCAS. So let's think about that. Now the teachers are thrilled to be able to have this data about the students in front of them that they can work with throughout the school year. That wasn't in place 4 years ago with our last strategic plan. So I think that you can hang your hat on a lot of those things that from 4 years ago to today, we had a high school and middle school schedule that had no ASP, no opportunity for intervention. We had no tutors at the middle school and high school. Freshmen had no opportunity for kids that may be failing or getting a D. There was no fire block and SOAR block for them to go to the ASP and get specific support. So I think there's a ton of things that we can say are absolutely student outcome based from this last strategic plan. But I do agree, it's been a chore to write up the action plans each year. And if there's an easier way for us to do that in a way that satisfies all of our needs, that's what we're looking for
Yeah.
from our end.
Yeah, so my only thing would be that, if we can get more precise on how we are falling short on showing that evidence.
I don't think it's falling short. I think it's evolving, because it sounds like the feedback on the strategic plan before this one was okay,
Mhm.
but the one that's in place right now is such an improvement over the last one. That's great. But now, fast forward 3 to 4 years, we have evolved. We have more data than we had before. We are looking into things differently. We're in a different place than we were 4 years ago, right? So my suggestion would be what I thought we had talked about before I thought we'd moved on, but like to have a workshop to go through exactly what you're like, so that we can all kind of like vet through what those data points are that we think would be beneficial and meaningful on the next strategic plan, and whether or not we need an outside. I don't think we need a ton of heavy lifting here, but I do think we benefit as a group to have an outside party
Yeah.
help us get through and keep moving, because I think we can get stuck on topics.
Yeah.
I don't
Our
know, that would
intention
be
was
my-
to provide you with choices so that,
Yeah.
again, we are flexible, and we just wanted to provide you with options and have that be a
Yeah.
collaborative decision, so that the last thing we want to do is select a vendor or select a consultant and then end up back in the same
Back at
place where we
square one.
have
Yeah.
a strategic plan where the indicators and the yearly progress could have been done in a stronger manner.
Yeah. So
Is there not like sorry, and then I'll,
That's okay.
your
That's fine.
turn. Is there not a person with the current strategic plan vendor we're using for free? That was at the $7,000 number?
Yeah.
You could,
There's different, that planning for success model
Planning for
has
success.
trained facilitators that you might reach out to one and they might say, I'm doing 7 strategic plans right now. So there's a number of people in the state that do it. So
okay.
you have flexibility with who you select to do that.
'Cause-
So, and again, some districts do it use that without having a facilitator, but I agree, having a facilitator kind of validates the work you're doing, that you're on the right track, and it gives someone, has perspective of doing this with multiple school districts all the
Exactly.
time.
Okay.
yeah, so I'm excited to hear this, because I think what Kathy's suggesting is what I'm looking for, just some specificity, whether we do it in a workshop or whether we do it in a meeting. But like I'm very afraid that regardless of like who we hire, whether we hire anybody, how much it costs, if we can't tell them what we're looking for,
Yeah.
then we're screwed. Like again, or I should say they are, because they're going to keep giving us presentations and we're going to keep saying these aren't specific enough, or they're not telling us the whole story. So I guess my frustration is that like I'm still not hearing what those specifics are. So if we need a workshop to work together so that we can really get clear
Maybe.
on what's missing,
That's a
where are the
step one,
gaps?
right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm jumping too far ahead, but I would just say that like the DESI person that we had, she was highly collaborative. I mean, what she was great was she was like a great listener. Like we had a whole first day just having everybody in that room, and there was like probably 40 of us, you know, with all different points of view, and she was synthesizing it all and then came back the next day, here's what I heard, this is blah, blah, blah. So in my view, she's great. You just got to tell her what you want. And that's what I don't think we can do. We keep saying what we don't want, but we're not saying what we want. Or at least that's my opinion. It just sounds to me like it's in the abstract all the time. It's just like, well, this isn't right. This is what, you know what I mean? Like, so if we can get good at what we want, then I think we could all be in a much better position to like take the right plan on getting it done.
I would love a workshop because it would help me with a lot of understanding. Because we have had a lot of discussions, and I think I still walk away with not grasping a lot of it. And I'm old. I think we've evolved as a district, and for me, I need that education, that self-education about what we need to do now versus what we needed to do before. So that would be very beneficial to me. I would love a workshop.
And I think if there's like non-data, it's not always numbers, but like again, they've taken kids who are like, you know, I think we talk a lot about the kids who are not meeting needs and things like that and whatnot, but there's, you know, I know that they're doing work at the middle school for the kids who are like excelling. and-
Enrichment. Yeah, we have
and now
that.
they've graduated from iReady because there's nothing left for them to do on their path. They've pulled a group of kids and they're working with them to provide them enrichment activities and books to read and things like that. And like, I know that because I have a friend whose son is in it and my Finn's friend is in it. But like, those are the wins too that I think are not like MCAS scores and they're not whatnot. and again, you'd read a strategic plan, and I know that's way too minute and like whatnot, but I just think those are the little pieces of like successes that we're having that are new. That's not something we used to do, and things like that that like press home the message that, just because we have kids like who are still not meeting, we do have these successes of kids who are like, we recognized we're doing really well and we could do more for. So I don't know. I don't know how I think a workshop is a great idea because I do think it at least narrows some of that down. And I just think the like empath in me is like, if you can like personalize and like kind of humanize it a little bit more, it's a school district. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with
I think it should be a more collaborative process in general for the yearly goal development. So I think that's great. And I think the last 2 strategic plans have been super collaborative. And I love having members of the community, grandparents, people that don't have kids in schools, students. Gerard was part of one of our, I think yours was the equity audit, but it's just really nice having that student voice and school committee, all of us in developing it. And then I think separately, the school committee needs to be able to be getting the data that they feel as though they need when they're approving items. You're looking at the warrants, you're looking at what the district is spending, and you want to be able to say, I know what that is, and that is for this purpose, and this purpose is something that is in line with our district initiatives. And so I think that would be helpful when you guys are looking through what the district is spending their money on for curriculum.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, I'm going to run.
You're not going to miss much, that's for sure.
Uh-oh. 2 potty breaks.
Okay. Policy.
Take a recess? Want to take a
Oh, yeah, we
recess?
can. We can. Sure. I move we take a recess. I don't know if you're.
Why don't we just take a recess?
Okay. That's great.
I need chocolate while we recess.
15 minutes
So
for
we're reconvening?
I just say,
Okay.
fiscal, yes, go.
Policies? Okay, here we go. All right, so, policy subcommittee met last month to go over 10 policies. They are all budget finance related, so they're all in the packet. The, page 57 of the packet, we just took care to, give like a synopsis of those budgets, but also to, we took the liberty of having some budgets and giving the existing Duxbury one with our markups on the new one, because the changes are so extensive that it would look like a mess. So when it says compare with DPS existing, we have both the existing one and then the one that we're recommending, okay? So the first, and the first policy falls into that category. It's policy DB, annual budget, and simply put, this just defines and outlines the budget purpose and development authority. So page 59 is what we're recommending, which is essentially the MASC with a couple of light changes to it. You can see those changes. The next policy is DBC, and that's budget deadlines and schedules. This policy outlines the budget preparation and presentation calendar. And again, changes were pretty extensive. So you can see on page 61 is what we're recommending, which is essentially the MASC policy in whole cloth.
Sorry, just because I'm not good, I don't do the packet. The Word document is the current, or that's in your Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah.
The left Word document as opposed to the PDF.
So if you were to,
Sorry.
if you're on the spreadsheet,
Yep,
if you were to click on the DB, that's
Yep.
going to take you to the one that we're recommending.
Okay.
And if you were to click on compare with DPS existing,
Yep.
that's our existing one.
Got it. Okay,
So
sorry.
So it's an easy way to sort of
Yep,
like compare them.
I got there.
Okay.
Do you want this, Laurel?
Okay, so
No, it's
the
okay.
the
I'm
third
looking,
one
I
is
just- I looked at all of them.
DVD
I just-
budget planning, and this just describes the budget planning process. The next one is budget adoption procedures, that's DBG, that describes the procedure and authority related to budget adoption. And just that one of note, I put in just a screenshot, which is the biggest screenshot I've ever seen of a text message to MASC, because as we were researching this one, I didn't see that it was required that we adopted the cost center level. And she confirmed that it's not required, but it is recommended. So if we adopt this new policy, then we would be making a formal vote to adopt budgets at the cost center level. But the good news is I think we can probably do it however we want. In other words, we could vote like a bottom line number and just say this accounts for the 3 cost centers. So we're not like making it overly complex. The next one is DBJ, that's Budget Transfer Authority. This one outlines the committee approval process of cost center transfers. So it's another revision, but it's a light revision, so the revisions are in line. If you just click on the link, you'll see where we're making the changes. The next one is DD, that's grants, proposals, and special projects. This outlines the responsibility and approval of grants. It's a heavy change, so you can see our existing one with the one that we are recommending. DFD is gate receipts and admissions, so we are recommending that we repeal that one. And Mrs. Freely has it, it's memorialized in another artifact that we have, right?
Yep, there is a student activity policy and guidelines document that includes receipts, and then there's also some, I'm working on a financial procedure manual as well. So it'll be addressed in there as well.
Okay. Rounding third, heading home. So DGA is authorized signatures. It's a heavy edit. Authorized signatures just delineates the review and approval of warrants. Second to last is DJA, purchasing authority. That's a light edit. This outlines the purchasing authority and approval process. And then lastly, we are recommending to repeal DM, which is cash and valuables in school building, and I think that falls under the same category as the other one, right? Yeah. So that's it. So if anyone has any questions now, you can certainly discuss them, and if not, I can clean all of these up and have this the final read. We'll have the final read ready on the 19th.
My only question is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
My only question is always, you know, we obviously primarily adopt MASC. Are there just particular highlights where we chose, other than just changing language around by our grammatical preference, something that was different for Duxbury that we changed?
Yep. So if you look at any of the ones that we're recommending, even if, so here's a good example. If you go to,
So the word version.
okay, so go to DB, annual budget.
Yep.
So we're adopting the MASC, but you
Yep.
can see that there's still some revisions in that, if you go to the bottom.
Right. Which is essentially just a restatement of that same thing, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, yep.
All right,
So
so that's-
anytime you see one that we're recommending that has any revisions to it, it's
That is a
self-evident,
district
that's, we're making
specific
it
revision.
specific to the district.
Understood.
For authorized signatures, this is what we do now, correct? I mean, it comes to everybody, but whoever gets on first signs it, basically?
Actually, this one talked about designating one specific school
Well, that's
committee
what I mean,
member.
so this is very different than what we do
Correct.
right now.
Mhm.
Okay, so that should be discussed, I think, maybe? Or I don't.
We have to figure out how to operationalize that policy if it's not what we're doing, so.
Yeah.
I think we talked about possibly having that discussion when the school committee reconfiguration happens
Yes.
each March
Yes.
or April, whichever meeting that is, when you determine who does what. That could be the discussion then of who's the primary and who's the
Just
secondary.
back up, yeah.
But everyone would still get the warrants, I assume?
Yeah, everyone would
Right.
still
I
have,
don't sign them.
Yeah.
everyone would
Yeah.
still have
It
access.
used to be that everybody had, I think they couldn't proceed unless every single school committee member and.
No, I'm not,
The
yeah, I'm not
business op-
disagreeing, I mean.
No, the business
I
officer
never
was
signed
chasing
them,
to
so
pay
everybody
bills.
No,
knows
we
it's
needed,
not great.
we used to have
They used to
three
have
had to do
three
it, and then we
signatures.
changed it so that, like, two would do it, but we still wanted everyone to have the opportunity to see
Right,
it, so.
And
yes.
of course, at any time, anyone can come review them.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I just wanted to say, to add to what you shared about the policy, financial policy and procedure manual, I think it's really important, once all of the edits are completed in that it's shared with the school committee. And I don't know if you're planning on posting that as part of the business office, or if that's just a document that, considering the financial responsibility of the school committee, they should, before it's finalized, be able to review it and weigh in. Because I think it's important that if somebody asks a school committee member,
How
hey,
we
what
manage
happens to
something."
all the concession stand cash that comes in, that's a bad example, but just when it comes to finances, I think it's really important that the school committee can answer anything anyone's asking them about whatever.
What are
How we
policies,
pay for,
how we
how
pay-
we pay for anything,
Yeah.
how we deal with cash, how we manage co-curricular accounts, how we deal with booster donations, like all of those financial pieces.
Yes.
Ruby.
Great. Okay,
Good.
so those will
So
go on
beat the
for
15
second read.
minutes.
You
Yep,
did,
second
by
reading
like
on the 19th,
15
yep.
minutes. Okay, great. Great. Anything else? Anybody?
Yes, one quick,
Yes.
are we gonna circle back on cell phone at the end of the year?
I think that would
I
be
would
an
like to do
appropriate
that.
time.
Sure.
Yes. And whether it be you have a teacher come in and talk about it, a student talk about it.
Both. I like
both.
that. Yeah.
Just, I want to refocus on it. I will say, going to that athletic meeting, I noticed about halfway through, I was the only person in the room with her cell phone visible. And I was, like, once I realized it, I was like, this is very good, but I am embarrassed. And it wasn't like I was even looking at it, but, and I don't know if it was conscious or unconscious, or there were 3 students in there maybe, and several teachers, but that was really positive to see. Yet I got a text from a child, well, only one of them has a cell phone, so during school hours about something not super important, and I was like, what are you doing on your phone? And I didn't get any more, but he was clearly using it not during, like, before school or after school. It was my own child. So I'm curious about how it's going. Is it really being enforced? What's happening when there's not? I think some of the principals talked about the disciplinary stuff, but if we could squeeze that in. I know we have a very packed end of the year, but it's really important, and I think it makes
Yeah, and I
big
think that we
difference.
still had the passing time phones that's loose, and I think that
Maybe that
there
was
is
it.
definitely, I'm going to stick up for the person you're talking about, and perhaps it was during a passing time.
Okay.
Um,
Dr. Klingeman.
Yep, and, but I think that there's a lot of encouragement at the state level to make it
Yep.
bell to
Okay,
bell.
gone.
Yep,
Done.
and I, again, I don't mind being part of that stricter
maybe we
recommendation
discuss
of
that
keeping
again
them
at some
away. I
point.
think it's a relief for kids to be away from their phones for a chunk of time, and it should be a relief for adults to be away from their phones as much as possible too, so.
Yeah.
Throw that on future agenda. All right.
Thank you. That's all.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you're gonna make it.
I'm gonna make it
You're
with
gonna make
time.
it.
Start, Lance.
You're gonna be a Dairy Queen.
Wait, how is Rance's ankle? Rance's ankle is fine.
Good.
Dr. Klingeman's limping into the building.